Welcome to Sincerely Bhakti, episode 21, Radical Responsibility. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, commentary by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, chapter 4, verse 14. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. So at this point in the Gita, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna karma yoga, or the art of work, and becoming detached from this world through work. He's showing by example how this is possible. And again, there is a very tiny word in the Sanskrit that has so much significance. So that word is iti, which translates as thus, but in Srila Prabhupada's translation, it means also. So if we look at the entire second part of this verse, Krishna is saying, one who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled. That means that we can follow in Krishna's example. Why is that? Because we are fragmental parts of God. In the 15th chapter of the Gita, verse 7, Krishna states that the living entities are fragmental portions of Him. So that means that we also have the same qualities of God. Not quantity, and we are surely not God, but we actually do have the qualities of God. So if He can become detached from this world, not affected by work, not entangled in activities, we also can. So by Krishna's example, he's showing he is the creator of this world. And Prabhupada expands upon that point by saying he creates this establishment of the material world. And he gives a nice analogy here. He says, the proprietor of an establishment is not responsible for the right and wrong activities of the workers, but the workers are themselves responsible. So what first ran through my mind when I read this part of the purport was, well, what about the proprietor of this establishment? Isn't he also responsible for creating a safe and fair work environment? And when I really reflected on it, I was like, this material world actually is fair. Not really safe, because we're always beset by death and disease and old age. But those are just symptoms of this being a temporary world. If we turn our back on eternal life, then it's only natural that we come to a place that's temporary. And with a temporary world, we're going to be facing death and disease and suffering in that way. So the laws of karma are solid. This is the most solid system of justice in the universe. So God has created a pretty fair environment. So now it's up to us. Now that we're workers in this establishment, what's our part? Are we pulling our weight? And, Krishna is not responsible for our actions. He sets everything up. Now it's up to us. And he is aloof. He's detached, even though he has created everything. So God is responsible for this world, and he knows that he's created it, and there are certain consequences. He is also ensuring that he is responsible, but we need to take responsibility for our actions. So Srila Prabhupada continues to write that the Lord only gives the living entities proper facilities for such activities and the regulations of the modes of nature, but the Lord is never responsible for their past and present activities. This really means that we are responsible. We are the ones who are creating our lives in a mini version of a reflection of God's creative power. We also are creating our lives. And the more I take responsibility for what I have created, the more power I actually own. Prabhupada writes here, the living entity is responsible for his own acts, because it's emphasized in the Vedanta Sutra that the Lord is not partial to any living entity. So if he's not partial, that means it's up to us, that we haven't been given any favor, we haven't been given any disfavor. This world is fair, it's just. So we're getting what we put in. And responsibility can sting. It totally stings. It hurts sometimes because it's realizing, oh, I created this. So if I can take that response, I can take that sting, then the more I can expand my mind and realize I'm in this material world. There are so many limitations. I'm not God. I certainly can't create the world or control the world, but I can control how I decide to act and how I decide to react to my life. So I'm going to take responsibility for what's in front of me. I know I can change my destiny in its own small way. Ultimately, the biggest change of destiny I can make is to become the observer and the witness of my life instead of becoming entangled. Because trying to change this world or reform it or reform my life or do something radical like that, it's just almost impossible and there's no need. We're not God. But what we can do, where the most powerful way we can actually interact with this world is to simply become the witness and become unentangled, which Krishna is emphasizing in this verse. He's saying, don't aspire for the fruits of your action and don't get affected by your work. Just do your duty, live your life, and become a witness. So this is not my home. I'm not meant to make my home here. And that is the way to actually take responsibility for my life, realize what I've created, my reality, and by recognizing, okay, I'm responsible for my life, I can also detach and become more of a witness and simply do my duty, do my best. That's radical responsibility. No one else is to blame. No one else is at fault. This material world can be a rough bargain because although it's a fair establishment, it can be pretty miserable because it's just not our home. So ultimately, we're not meant to stay here. We're meant to go home. So thanks for tuning in to episode 21, Radical Responsibility. I will see you next time. Hare Krishna.